Today in class we talked about how to solve a multi-step equation. I gave these 4 steps that, or you can consider it a checklist, that you should go through during every problem that requires more than 2 steps. The first question you need to ask yourself is, does the problem contain the distributive property? That means that if you have a number outside the parentheses, you need to take that number on the outside and multiply it by each term on the inside. Once you check for the distributive property, you need to check if there are like terms. Like terms have the same letter and they can be added or subtracted. After you check for like terms, you add or subtract the smaller letter to the other side if there are letters on both sides of the equal sign, and from there you solve the 2-step equation. So if we look at example number 2, or problem number 2, since it's an equation, we drop the line down the equal sign. I know that I have to distribute a -3 to both terms inside the parenthesis, and I also have to distribute a 2 to both terms inside the other parenthesis. Anything that is not part of the distributive property drops down, such as the 4a. -3 times a is -3a. -3 times -2 is a +6. Drop the equal sign down. 2 times 3a is 6a. 2 times -2 is -4. From there, you want to see if there are any like terms. When adding and subtracting like terms, you have to make sure that they are on the same side of the line, or the equal sign. I know that I can combine 4a minus 3a and get 1a. Drop down the +6, drop down the equal sign, and there are no like terms on the right side of the line. From here, I move the smaller letter by adding or subtracting. So since I have a 1a on one side and a 6a on the other, I'm going to move the smaller one. The opposite of a +1 is subtracting 1 on both sides. It cancels and I drop down the 6 equals 5a minus 4. And now this is a 2-step equation, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And I get 10 is equal to 5a. And I'm going to divide both sides by 5, and I get that 2 is equal to a. If you look at example 4, and I drop my line down the equal sign, I notice that there's a -2 out inside of a parenthesis, and that there's a 6 out in front of the parenthesis. Once again, anything that is on the outside or not in the distributive property can be dropped down. -2 times 3p is -6p. -2 times a +1 is a -2. Drop the equal sign down. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 1p is a +6p. After distributing, you add or subtract like terms, and I see that I have a 14 minus a 2, which gives me a 12. I'm going to drop the -6p down, equals 24 plus 6p. Since there are letters on both sides, I'm going to add or subtract the smaller one. I'm comparing a -6p and a +6p. Since the -6p is smaller, I'm going to add it to both sides. I'll drop down the 12 equals 24 plus 12p. Now this is a 2-step equation, so eliminate the number without the letter, which is subtracting 24 on both sides, and we have -12 equals 12p, and then get rid of the number with the letter, and I get that p is equal to -1. If we look at example 6, I'm going to drop my line down the equal sign. Notice here that there's no number in front of the parentheses, but there is just a negative sign. Make sure that you insert and distribute a -1. Same thing goes for the right side of the equation. You have to distribute a -1. The x drops down. -1 times 4x is -4x. -1 times a -7 is a +7. drop the equal sign down, drop the 5x down. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. And negative 1 times a positive 21 is a negative 21. After you distribute, you combine like terms. On the left side, I can combine 1x minus 4x, which is negative 3x plus 7. Drop the equal sign down. On the right side, I can combine 5x minus 1x, which gives me 4x minus 21. I move the smaller letter by adding or subtracting. My smaller letter is a negative 3x, so I'm going to add it to both sides. I get 7 equals 7x minus 21. And now I have a two-step equation, and I am going to add 21 on both sides. This cancels, and I get 28 equals 7x. And then go ahead and divide both sides by 7, and you get that x equals 4. Now, if you are listening to this video and you want a bonus point, up at the top of the paper on the date line, write the words, or write the letters DCMS. That stands for distribute, combine, move the smaller letter, and solve. You will get 1 bonus point if you write that on the date line.